Hello everyone and welcome to a game a lot of you have been waiting for. As soon as it finished, I received, countless suggestions for me to show this game, and of course I'm going to show it. That is what I do. So we are in round 6 of the Tata Still 2025, and it is the leader of the tournament, Nodirbek Abdusattorov versus Gukesh Domaraju. Gukesh, world classical champion. He's trailing half a point behind the leaders, behind Nodirbek and Pregnaranda, and this is a beautiful game, and especially move 4 makes it so interesting and so exciting that you guys are probably thinking I'm talking about something else, but I'm not. So let me just show you. So Nodirbek has the white pieces here, and he opened with pawn to e4. Gukesh replies pawn to e5. We have knight f3, knight to c6, and bishop to c4. We have bishop to c5, and now get this. We have this position very, very often, and c3 is sometimes played, d3 sometimes played, castles is sometimes played. Those are the top 3 moves, and we more often than not get the exact same position of the Giuoco Piano that we always see. Pawn to b4, the Evans Gambit, is the 4th most popular continuation, but here Nodirbek plays the, I guess, 15th or 16th or 17th most popular continuation, depending on what database you check, but he plays pawn to a4. And this has been played only a handful of times. In top-level games, only Navara and Darha have played it, and they both won. Interestingly, anyone who's ever played this pawn to a4 move has won the game, most of the time. So let's see how it goes. We have knight to f6 by Gukesh and pawn to d3. We have pawn to d6, pawn to a5 already, and Gukesh has a very interesting option here. Can he go bishop to b4 check and win that pawn? Nodirbek will most likely block the check with the bishop, so you can't. So you can play bishop to b4 check, but it will also mean that you want to trade bishops. However, you are black, and that is good for you. So bishop to b4 check, forcing a trade, and if c3 or something like knight b to d2, then you're just going to help yourself and win the a5 pawn. So bishop d2, we have bishop captures, knight b to d captures on d2, and now castles kingside. Castles kingside, and now comes knight to e7. There is a game that was played last year in the Olympiad where Fernando Fernandez played Felix Bloberger, and Felix played a rook to b8. And rook to b8 is the top move recommended by the engine, but here we have knight to e7 by Gukesh, and it is now as of move 9 that we have a completely new game. So okay, we have pawn to c3. More often than not, when the knight loses control over the d4 square, white will just immediately strike with pawn to d4. But here, Nodirbek decides to prepare it. c3, we have knight to g6, and now rook to e1. Pawn to h6, and now striking in the center, pawn to d4. So okay, these are all very natural moves. Knight to h7, Gukesh also makes room for the knight to come to g5. Maybe some king h8, f5 can be played, but from experience, probably we will not see that. We have rook to e3, going for a nice rook lift. If the knight moves, you can also bring the rook into the attack. Knight to g5, attacking the knight, and now we have a trade. Knight captures, queen captures, and pawn to g3. Bishop to g4, attacking the white queen, and now look at this, pawn to h4. And this is such a dirty trick move that Gukesh actually spent 3 minutes here discussing what's the best thing to do here, because it seems like you can just capture on e3. The problem is that once you capture on e3, white doesn't capture the bishop. White moves the queen, and now your queen is trapped. By playing h4, Nodirbek also took away control over the g5 square. So after pawn to h4, queen to h5 by Gukesh, attacking Nodirbek's queen, and just queen to b3. The situation on the clock, fairly standard. Nodirbek an hour and 7 minutes on the clock versus Gukesh 56 minutes. So nothing spectacular. This is, for these guys, this is a lot of time. Rook 8 to b8, and now knight to f1. We have knight to e7, knight to h2, kicking away the bishop, bishop to d7, and kicking away the queen with bishop to e2. We have queen to g6, And now a trade on e5. D captures, and rook to d1, putting pressure on the bishop, and bishop to e6. Not just to attack the queen, it is also important that the bishop controls this diagonal. Point is that if you play something like bishop to c6, white is already winning here. It's a very difficult move to see, but as you guys are amazing players, I have no doubt that you have already spotted knight to g4, and there's no good way to defend the e5 pawn. Even bishop captures on e4 is insufficient in this game, but just to show you, let's say you even offer a queen trade, you can just trade. Let's say captures, you go bishop c4, and now this pawn is hanging, and black's position will just fall apart very quickly. So you have to be careful. Bishop to e6 attacks Nodirbek's queen. Queen to b5, and now knight back to c6. Okay, you know that knight to c6 will invoke pawn to a6, weakening the c6 square. So if b captures, the queen can capture the knight. Bishop back to c8, and now pawn to h5, grabbing even more space. So Nodirbek, like in that game Karpov versus Kasparov, pushing the a pawn and the h pawn, where Kasparov said, "Oh, that's not the way to play chess. Something has to be wrong with this." But there's nothing wrong with Nodirbek's position here. Now, in the era of engines, we know that we can push pawns on both sides of the board, and just don't worry about it. We have queen to f6 and rook to f3. Attacking the queen. Yes, this gives black a tempo, but if the queen was on e6, then you'd have bishop g4, and that'd be even worse. So queen to e6 now, and bishop to c4, attacking Gukesh's queen. Queen to e7, and now, well, you could play something like, let's say, rook fd3. You could double up. Nodirbek goes for queen to a4. This will, well, after captures, put pressure on a7. Also, maybe b4, b5 is an idea. So it is a very, very flexible move. Gukesh goes knight to d8. He says, all right, you can have your pawn. I have to give some material in order to activate my pieces. And we have a captures on b7. Probably b4 is still a move here, but Nodirbek decides to trade. And after bishop captures, you'd think that he will go for queen captures on a7. But no, he just goes rook to e3. Because if he captures, you can't really capture right away because the rook is hanging. But once you move the knight, let's say to e6, then the rook is defended, but then the queen comes back to e3 to defend the pawn. So, well, it can be played. It's maybe not as interesting as what Nodirbek had in mind. So he just plays rook e3. Defends the pawn, also frees up the f3 square for the knight, and the a7 pawn is still hanging, but Gukesh just chases away the queen. Now, capturing an a7 would be a terrible blunder, because queen captures rook a8, and your queen is trapped. So after bishop to c6, Nodirbek brings the queen back all the way to a2, keeping tension on this long diagonal. Knight to b7, and now finally pawn to b4. We have knight to d6, putting pressure on the bishop, and bishop to d5. We have bishop captures on d5, rook captures on d5, and queen to e6, with ideas of rook to b5 that will force a queen trade, and well, Gukesh should have a very nice game. So Nodirbek plays rook to e2, c6 now. Rook b5 also just forces the trade. He decides for pawn to c6. Rook to a5, we have queen captures on a2, and now rook a captures on a2. It seems like you could also double up here and go for the pawn, but then the knight captures on e4. So it's better to do it this way. Rook a captures on a2, rook f to c8, now with ideas of pawn to c5 and knight to g4, attacking e5. And how do you defend? If you want, you can play f6. He decides against that, as then, well, a lot of squares here become weak. Here, pawn to c5, immediately countering. We have b captures, rook captures, and now rook captures on a7. Rook captures on c3, and rook to d7. Now, much better than knight captures on e5. Then the rook can attack the knight. And then, okay, the knight and the rook will go after the e4 pawn, so this would be just trading down into a draw. But rook to d7 is very, very tricky. Now Gukesh goes knight to e8, and only now knight captures on e5, going after the f7 pawn. We have knight to f6, attacking the rook, where, okay, it seems like we can capture another pawn, but if you capture here, then rook to e8, and this, now it's definitely a draw, as, well, the knight can't really move. The rook will hang. You're gonna have to play rook captures on f6, and after something like this, try and play this being down the exchange. It's still good for white because the white is up material, pawn wise, but maybe too adventurous. Rook to e7 is just objectively better. So this is what he plays, and now comes rook to b4 by Gukesh. Knight captures on h5 is definitely a pawn and would equalize in material, but then knight captures on f7, wins a pawn, and after king f8, rook a7. And okay, there's the passed pawn to worry about. This will be Nodirbek slowly pushing for the win. So after rook e7, rook to b4 was played, and now putting more pressure on that e4 pawn, and now pawn to g4, defending the pawn on h5. And what is this? What is this situation all about? Can you capture the pawn, or can you capture the pawn this way? What happens if you just capture here? Well, the problem is after rook captures and knight captures, there's rook to e8 with check, and now after king h7 only move, knight captures on f7, attacks the knight, and also threatens checkmate. So this would be a huge blunder for Gukesh. So Gukesh goes rook to c5. He invites knight d3 with a fork, but there's always rook b1 check. So we don't need to worry about that. f3, strengthening the pawns once and for all, and now it's time for the king to get into the game. King f8, so you get rid of back rank issues, and now comes rook captures on f7. King to e8 by Gukesh, and now look at this, knight to d3. It seems like you could also go for rook captures on g7, give up the knight. We can even just show it. You give up the knight and you go after the h6 pawn as well, and you have so much for the sacrifice piece. You have 4 pawns for a piece, which is usually winning. With your uncle taking over the position, but here it's very easy to get a quick draw after, let's say, king g2. You're going to attack the rook. White will have to trade here. There's nothing better. Then you're going to pick up another pawn, and now, okay, 3 pawns for the knight. It's nice, but it's a draw. So after king e8, knight to d3, fork, but not really winning anything. Rook to b1 with check. King to g2, rook to c3, and now knight to e5. Gukesh repeats, rook to b5, goes after the knight here, and now Nodirbek goes rook captures on g7. But here it is different than in the position that we've just discussed, because rook captures on e5, there's rook a2, and now you're threatening checkmate. The king is not on f8. So okay, Gukesh has to waste a move, king f8, and now rook g6, and this is very, very much different. Gukesh finds the only move that keeps him in the game. Knight captures on e5. You might as well give back the piece to claim some pawns, but Nodirbek says no thank you, rook to e2. And now Gukesh finds another only way to continue the game, rook to g5, where if rook captures, then you capture with the knight, and your position is once again playable. So Nodirbek has to insist on being a piece down. He plays rook captures on h6, and now it is 3 pieces for the knight, but this position is objectively winning for Nodirbek. So knight to c5, we have rook to c6, and now comes knight to a4. Rook to a6 attacking the knight, and knight to c5. And here Nodirbek couldn't figure out how to go about this position. The key was to give this one check on f6. Rook to f6 check, and once the king moves, depending on where the king moves, you go rook c6. And now once you repeat knight to a4, you go rook e7 with check. So you can't go up the board. I mean, you can go, but you cannot go to h8. King to f8, and now you will go rook c to e6, and now you will push the pawn. With the knight being far away from the action, this is easily winning. But after knight c5, Nodirbek played rook to a8 with check, king to f7, and now rook to a7 with check, king to f6. Here there is one more way that Nodirbek can win the game, but it's extremely difficult to find. What would you play here, just for fun? So if any of you found pawn to h6, you have engine blood running through your veins, as h6, I mean, even if you try it, it's hard to see why it's winning right away. You will have to find a series of unique moves to continue winning this game. For example, rook to g8, of course you want to block the back rank. Rook to c7, only winning move, you're going to have to meet knight a4 with pawn to h7, only winning move, and after rook to h7, rook to d7, only winning move, and so on and so on. I mean, with a little time on the clock, this is obviously not very easy, and you will still play this position for 50 more moves before you actually win the game. So there was, quite a grind needed here to win this. But he missed it. He played rook to e8. Obviously, he thought that let's stop rook g8, and now we just advance the pawn to victory. But now there is one move that stops Nodirbek's plans, and Gukesh played it, well, pretty much immediately. He goes knight to e6. He spent some 30 seconds on this move. And now the problem is, even though, yes, the rook is covering the back rank, yes, the pawn can march forward, look at what Gukesh calculated. Pawn to h6, it was played, now comes the move that he found, and that is rook to e5. Of course, you had to see it when you went knight to e6, and I'm sure Gukesh saw it, 10 moves prior to this position. He's the world champion, of course. And now the problem is h7 is met with knight to f4 check, and it is black who wins the game, because whatever you play, let's say knight e2 check, king f2, you pick up the rook and you guard the queening square, and you also guard the knight here. So there's nothing for white here. And also after rook to e5, if you go rook captures on e6, it's insufficient. For example, h7, you'll just play rook c8, and you guard the queening square. So after rook e5, rook to a6 was played with a double attack on the knight, and now rook c2 check, king to f1. Interestingly, you could still play this on with something like king g3 and let's say rook e to e2, but it is only Gukesh, I believe, who would be playing this for a win. So after this rook e to e2 move, you would have to find rook captures on e6, and after rook captures on e6, pawn to g5 with check, king to f5, and now rook to a5 with check, king to g6, let's say king g4, and okay, you can still play this. It's objectively a draw, but it doesn't feel all that great. You're down a full rook. Yes, you have 3 pawns, but you can't really do anything here. So after rook c2 check, we saw a conclusion that we really didn't think that we will see here. King to f1, rook c1 check, king to f2, we have rook to c2 check, king f1, and we have a threefold repetition, king f1 check, and he was in this position on move 66 that Nodirbek and Gukesh, drew by threefold repetition. So incredible game, incredible fight by both of them. What can I say? I mean, you've seen what happened. Gukesh gave him one opportunity, and Magnus even came as a guest in the live coverage, and he said that, okay, maybe Nodirbek sometimes plays these docile positions where there's not much happening, but if you give him that one opportunity, doesn't matter how complicated it is, he will find it and he will take you down. Here he found it, but he didn't find it all the way because Gukesh was also lurking. He was looking, he was scavenging basically through all the variations, and he found this incredible resource. I mean, that is definitely something else here. After captures, finding this was just out of this world. 96 followed by rook to e5, and then the h-pawn cannot queen. So incredible fight, and I thought Nodirbek will take down Gukesh, but he's not the world classical champion without a reason. You have to find all of the correct moves to beat him, and he has shown this, even in this tournament many times. He's still undefeated, so he has not lost a game since becoming world champion. He's undefeated as world champion, and we'll see how long he can push this. Today he was on the brink of despair, but he was able to pull through, and it's only half a point for Nodirbek. And here are the standings after 6 rounds have been played. Still Nodirbek and Pragnananda leading, Gukesh trailing by half a point with 4 points. Then with 3.5 points we have Vladimir Fedosev, Pentala Harikrishna, and Alexis Sarana, who won a very nice game today. I'm going to show that tomorrow. Then with 3 points, Fabi Weyi and Vincent Keimer. With 2.5 points, Anish. With 2 points, Jordan and Max Varmedam. And with 1.5 points, Arjun Ergesi and Leon Luke Mendonça. Still finding their footing, so to say. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Brilliant stuff. I mean, it's exhausting watching them just calculate every move. They calculate every move, to 50 moves ahead. It's just, I mean, they have so much energy. They played this game for over 6 hours. It was, I watched the entire session. It was truly a treat. So if you have some 6 hours, do check it out. So I hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Ryan Canus, Isaac Pinal Katadao, Everett Mulder, John Tardif, and Maximo Eisern for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check upon your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.